Oh, no, it's fine. You can hear me.
Not. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Just in case we wanted to say something that, between us friends. Hello, everyone. My name is Chelsea Higgs Wise. I'm the co founder and executive director of Marijuana Justice. Thank you so much for joining our first Legalize It Live. We're going to really hope and try to make sure that we don't go more than about 30 minutes to keep your attention and to keep our schedules and yours going. Now, in case you can't stay with us this entire time, we want to make sure that you can replay this entire Legalize It Live on our Facebook as well as on our YouTube. So make sure you are following and subscribing there. So also, in case you aren't able to stay the whole time, we're going to say this again later, but there are two important dates that we want everyone to be able to mark on their calendars, show up and support if you can. The first one is December the 2nd at 2 p.m. will be our final Cannabis Commission meeting before our next legislative session. It starts at 2 o'clock at the General Assembly. You will see more of this in our newsletter and in our social media, but mark your calendars for this event. Our second date that you need to mark your calendar for is January the 27th. This is the People's Policy Day, again, at the General Assembly building. Registration will open soon at the end of this month of November, and you want to make sure you can be there all day. So take off work if you can, bring your family and friends, and register for this event so you can have your voices heard directly to our Virginia legislators. So let's get right to it. I know a lot of people are talking about the election that happened last night, rightfully so. And a lot of folks may not understand what it means to have this new governor elected. And sure, as we talk about this from a cannabis perspective, and that's what we'll be talking about tonight, of course, we know that yes, we can have a market, but who owns it? Does it protect workers? Does it reinvest back into communities, back into Virginia's small businesses? And does legalization in Virginia come with repair for people with past convictions, for families, and for young people? Well, I'm really excited to say that with this election, we do feel more hopeful. With our new governor-elect, Abigail Spanberger, she has said that she will sign a legalization for a regulated adult use market if it ends up on her desk. We're also really excited to say that the Lieutenant Governor-elect, Hashmi, has also been a friend of this proposal and of this movement, as well as Attorney General-elect Jay Jones. So we know that people are ready to legalize it, but just because they say they're going to sign the bill, we have to really understand, is it going to be written for the people that were most harmed, or are we just going to pass for access for consumers? And that's why we're here tonight, to not just talk about legalize it, but to legalize it right. So here is a quick VA civic lesson for our review. So I think it's important for us to make sure we are understanding the system. So in Virginia, for the last 4 years, Virginia has had a Republican, a more conservative governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general that were elected in the end of 2021 and took office in 2022. So, in order to make a law in Virginia, or a bill or a proposal has to get past the House and the Senate with a majority votes before even going to the governor's desk to decide. In Virginia, we have 100 seats in the House, which means a majority is 51. We have 40 seats in the Senate, which means our majority is 21. So Virginia meets annually for legislative session. It is a part-time legislature, so they meet from about January to maybe March, mid-March. And there's also usually what they might call a veto amendment session in April. The laws then take effect in July 1 of that year. So that's why it's a part-time. It happens very quickly, and there's a lot of preparation that comes even before January. So for the last 2 years, there have actually been a Democratic majority in both the House and the Senate, the two chambers that have to pass the bill before going to the governor's desk. But there's still a Republican governor and that's how we've had so many vetoes. But last night, Virginia not only voted in a new governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general, but Virginia also expanded its majority in the House. So prior to last night, in the last 2 years, Virginia has had a 51 majority of the 100. Well, last night with the election, Virginia now holds 64 House seats in the House of Democrats, in the House of Delegates. That's 64 seats in the House of Delegates, the largest majority for the Democrats in almost 40 years. Now, just to note, the Senate was not up for election. So we're going to talk about what all of this means with this new election, the new attorney general, governor, lieutenant governor, and this House majority. What does this mean for cannabis? But first, let's take a look at what our newly elected governor, Abigail Spanberger, has said in the past about marijuana when she was a congresswoman. Take a look.
So I support medical use of marijuana, and in the state of Virginia, the GA that just passed that. So from a federal perspective,
Chloe, turn that down.
And then I support the descheduling of marijuana. It's currently a Schedule 1 drug,
Right.
Which
That would be great.
it does not meet any of the standards in terms of being incredibly addictive, and I support descheduling it. The other thing is for states that do choose to make it recreational use legal, I support being able to actually make sure that money can go into the banking system.
Okay, that is a rarely seen clip from the newly elected Abigail Spanberger talking about her position on marijuana while she was still serving in Congress. She has had a past of voting for the MORE Act, which would legalize, deschedule, and promote a regulatory model, including repair. So before we start talking about what's next, let's have a little story time. We really have to know where we've been in order to understand where we are going. So in 2019 is when marijuana justice was birthed. Now, we were birthed out of necessity. For the former governor back in 2021, 2020, and 2019, there was a Governor Northam. Governor Northam at the time, unfortunately, had a really bad time with his old yearbook. And on that yearbook page, it had a person in blackface and KKK. And he went on an apology tour. And many of us said, instead of just apologizing with your words, let's apologize with your power. Because there was no other organization at the time that was fighting for cannabis to be done with repair and with equity, marijuana justice was formed. Unfortunately, there were many groups back in 2019 that were fighting for legalization, but they partnered very closely with the then medical corporations that now still and back then rule the medical market. These groups, unfortunately, really just focused on revenue and profits versus the entire repair model. And marijuana justice never just wanted to legalize, we wanted to legalize it right. So after being founded in 2019, by January 2020, that session right before COVID, we knew that the Virginia legislature was set to decriminalize marijuana. Now, decriminalization still had its civil penalties. Even with possession, you actually could not consume even as an adult. It was illegal, but did not carry crimes to take you to prison. So that was in 2020. And during 2020, we also partnered with ACLU to put together a study that said, hey, if we legalize this, what if we did this with specific reforms? Now, unfortunately, at the same time, there was a work group study being proposed by the MSOs, these medical corporations that now, back then, and still rule our medical cannabis pieces. They had a work group study that they proposed. And we knew that it did not carry the equity pieces nor repair pieces. And so we really wanted to make sure that we could push a study that included all of the repair. And I'm happy to say that the then Senator Jennifer McClellan was the person that was able to make sure that we had this possibility. So she proposed this JLARC study, and it was passed in 2020 along with decriminalization. It took some months for this study to come about. In November, it came out, and it included the pieces that we knew that we needed. And it went forward towards 2021 to then inform that legislation. Now, just because the JLARC study was up and it was available, do you all think that the 2021 marijuana bill included the repair and the pieces that we wanted? No. I will tell you right now, in 2021, there was a Democrat House majority, a Democrat Senate majority, a Democrat governor. Does that sound familiar? That's right. And we still had a bill that was proposed that wasn't including the proponents that we really needed to have equity within the bill. So we had to then push. So without the people's push in 2021, even with all of the majorities, we would have actually had our cannabis regulated under ABC. That is what the law said. And now, because of the people's push, we have an agency that's based off expertise with the Cannabis Control Authority. And our study also said that it would allow for a more equitable market and process when providing licenses throughout Virginia. So we're really here to remind everyone that the history of this process will and has always required the people to push. Within that 2021 bill, they also said that they didn't want to legalize until 2024. Now, that governor that we were putting his feet to the fire because of some really terrible actions with his yearbook, 2021 was his last year. So pushing it to 2024, we knew we were losing our leverage. And that's why we had to say, hey, right now you have to do something with all of the harms that are happening with the arrests. Black people in Virginia were being disproportionately arrested and convicted over 4 times the rate of white people. Over 20,000 people a year were being impacted in 2021. And we said we could not wait another 3 years to legalize, and we had to do it right now. So again, one of our heroes back then, Jennifer McClellan, proposed an amendment that said, hey, we might not have a market this year, but we will legalize consumption for adults, for sharing for adults, for homegrown for adults. And that is how we were able to move forward as becoming the first state in the South to repeal the prohibition of simple possession. We didn't have a market, but we were stopping the harms, and that was on purpose. Now, since the Dems were not ready, they essentially said, let's just wait to the next session, the next year, to vote on our market. And unfortunately, in that November, after we passed the bill for possession legal, what happened next was that Virginia flipped. And that majority that we had in the House for Democrats that supported our pieces were no longer there. And there was a Republican governor that was coming in for the 2022 session. So now you understand how we got here, how Virginia said, hey, we're going to legalize it, but we don't have a market. Why does that make any sense? Because they never wanted to legalize it in 2021. It was the people's push that said, do this right now. And it's important that we keep that mindset even right now in 2025. Because in 2022, there was no bill that made it to the governor's desk because the majority was mostly conservatives. In 2023, there was no bill that made it to the desk. But in 2024, after an election, the Democrats then went back to being the majority in the House. So they had the House and the Senate, but unfortunately, there was still a Republican governor that vetoed a bill in 2024 and in 2025. It's important to know that these two bills that were vetoed in 24 and 25, those bills still needed a lot of work, but they were bills to signal that Virginia is ready for a regulated market. It was a signal to say that we wanted reinvestment, that we wanted repair and equity. And so now has been the time to make sure that we get everything that we said that we need in order to make this an industry for the people. So in 2025, which was just earlier this year, we knew that we had to do something to make sure that we had a bill that was for the people. I get asked all the time, Chelsea, why hasn't the bill improved that much since 2021? Well, honestly, it's because we continue to have to fight with large actors. The big medical corporations continue to lobby for what they want, which is to open up right now and give them everything that they can to completely capture the market because they're already stood up. So we've wasted so much time. Instead of building a bill that's for our people, we've been basically chasing off big corporate bad actors. So in 2025, this past year, we did do something that did not require a conservative Republican to sign the bill, and we set up a commission that included 10 legislators to review the current bill and to listen to experts, to listen to stakeholders, and to come up with a proposal that will then meet this newly elected House and this new governor and put something for the people that we can be proud of. The commission, like I said, was 10 legislators. They have met 3 times since July, and they have one more meeting. It's that December 2nd meeting that I mentioned to you about. And we've had experts, we've had public testimony, and there have been plenty for these legislators to chew on how to make this bill better. So up next, I'm just going to show you just a little bit of clips from myself as I testified at the Cannabis Commission this past August and some of the things that we've been working for.
My name is Chelsea Higgs-Wise with Marijuana Justice. 3 main points I just want to quickly lift. We talked about participation and people with felony convictions. I just wanted to say that the bill right now says the conviction is to be 7 years old. There could be also a conversation about just allowing folks that have met all of their conditions to participate, period. Those with a possession charge could be part of that equity conversation, or as we have in micro, we could also expand that to all of the convictions and not just simple possession. As we talked about equity, right now it is named micro. I just want to put out a language change there that we might want to call that impact applicants, as it would also line up with our legislative intent. Also want to say I agree with removing the opt-out. To also lift a key point that the California regulator that I just met, that 50% of her agency budget is for enforcement. That would be 50% of CCA would go to enforcement only because they have such a large gap of folks that are not able to sell in order to keep up with the illicit market.
All right. That's just a little bit of the things that we have to continue to make sure that we have an inclusive market. And as you can see, not just myself, but there are many people in the audience that also were able to show up and have their voices heard. So make sure that if you can make it on December 2nd, that we see you up at the General Assembly at 2 o'clock. Now, all of this work that we've been putting in since July with this Cannabis Commission, and honestly, since the very beginning, we have to now take advantage of this moment and ask ourselves, what do we want? And we have to then now ask these people that have just been elected, do they care about what we want? So yes, we're very excited about this newly incoming governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney generals. And we appreciate that they want safe products for adults. But do they care about small businesses? What about minority businesses? What about micro businesses? What about cooperatives? Does the new governor, attorney general, and lieutenant governor, do they care about the reforms for people that were disproportionately impacted by weed convictions? Do these people care about the reinvestment for revenue to small businesses? What about the reinvestment to communities that had their neighborhoods exploited because of the war on cannabis? Do they care about giving large publicly traded corporations a first mover advantage? I want everyone to hear me that the biggest fight that will come is who gets to go first. And that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about today, a little bit later before we close out. Because will the legislators mandate a head start for these corporations? Or will they allow for Virginia businesses to join before we ring the open bell? On that first day of Virginia cannabis sales, is it important to these newly elected officials that small businesses be there to also sell to Virginians? Or will the only people that have the opportunity to make a profit from this from the very beginning, will that just be out-of-state corporations? That's what we're deciding right now. So let's just talk about some myths. I can bust some myths. There are many of them here, and I'm just going to mention 3 that I hear a lot of the times. So number 1, myth. All of the corner stores selling vapes and hemp will be converted to weed shops. No, that is a complete myth. We will still need to pass a law that will require the testing and also give out licenses to people. And just because you're standing up right now does not mean that you'll get a license. Unfortunately, that's only for the medical folks. So right now, if you don't have a medical card and you're buying illegal, untested cannabis. Myth number 2. Myth number 2. After the bill passes, Virginia will be able to buy adult use cannabis in 2026. Now, remember I just told you about that schedule that we have for legislation? That means that this myth is not true. It's a no. We will pass this bill and it will be enacted July 1 of 2026. Y'all, the Cannabis Control Authority still has to hire people. They have to make the regulations. They have to make the application. They have to put the application out. They have to review applications, and then they have to grant and award the applications. All of that has to happen before anyone can put a seed in the soil. So we need to make sure we remember that this is a plant, and it does require time to grow, and businesses require time to be set up. Right now, people are saying, well, what about January 1, 2027? Well, I just told you that the bill won't pass until July. And I've heard from many expert growers that say it takes 6 months to put a seed in the ground to get flower ready. And July 1 to January 1 is not enough time for small businesses to be open. So if we're talking about 2026, the only people that we're going to be able to buy from are who? The corporations. All right. Myth number 3. Getting sales to market as fast as possible is the best approach. Heck no. If we allow sales to happen as quickly as possible, you probably picked up on this already, that the only people that will benefit are these large publicly traded corporations that are currently the medical monopolies. Did you know that the monopolies in the medical cannabis, they will actually be able to use the same plants that they use to sell you for medical marijuana? They will use that same plant for adult use cannabis. So if you aren't enjoying the medical market, if you're one of the many people in Virginia that has to drive up to Maryland as a patient because even though medical is legal, you don't appreciate their quality or their high prices, then that's what rushing to market will do for the Virginia industry. So no, it's not the best approach. It's also not the best approach because if we give this market over to monopolies, we know a little study about commercial determinants of health that say big monopolies do not care about communities. They don't care about reinvestment. They don't care about what happens to the neighbors in their communities where they're selling marijuana. And that's why it's actually against our public health to have these types of monopolies. We don't want to be quick because it takes 12 to 24 months to even get retail. You got to get a license. Then you got to go and find a building. Then you got to go get local zoning. It's really important that we keep the reality check of, yes, we want to market, but do we want the people of Virginia to benefit or only the corporations? And finally, myth number 3. After that was 3. My bad. So those 3 myths that we know, we have to keep in mind as we move forward. And here's some of the truths. That the proposal right now is providing a state mandated monopoly to be grandfathered in, where no one else gets that advantage, y'all. Everyone else will have to go into a lottery. These large corporations are the only ones that get to skip the lottery. The state will mandate a first mover advantage for the corporations rather than waiting for Virginia businesses to be ready. The state will mandate corporations will be the businesses to be able to have one license to sell seed to seed to sale. That's a vertical integration. That license will not be available for anyone else. Everyone else will have to apply separately for a cultivation license, a processing license, a retail license. They will get a special license. And the rollout matters. And Virginia is not allowing, but almost mandating that these corporations have a huge first mover advantage by not allowing time for Virginia small businesses to stand up. So what should we do? In order to allow Virginia small businesses to have a chance to compete, we can build a trigger tying the first sale of the corporations to the first sale of a Virginia small business. Will this delay sales? Yes. But if you care about this industry and the commercial determinants of health, then you know that waiting a few months will be better than handing over our entire market over to corporations. This market that will outlive us all and was here before us. It will outlive us, and it was here before us. So we can do this by asking for more education campaigns while we're waiting for Virginia to stand up so that folks know that these corner stores are not providing you with tested marijuana. We can also promote more home grow, sharing so people can access cannabis legally. There are ways to do this, but opening the floodgates is not the only way to keep communities safe. So in conclusion, to build a better people's market, it will take time. And we should really demand that time to ensure the first day that we have sales, that there are small businesses participating, because unfortunately, there's no way to do that in a quick timeline. So ways that you can help. You can sign our petitions. We have a petition for just about all of our proposals on our website, and you can go there for parental rights. We also have our Legalize It right for the regulation. And we know right now that even our parental rights has over 200 signatures. We didn't talk about it today, but did you know that right now you could still lose custody for a legal plant? That's right. So December 2nd is our Giving Tuesday. We hope that you'll, throw us some coins for December Tuesday. Cash App is case sensitive. Make sure you capitalize the M and the J. And then December 2nd is also our commission meeting. We want to make sure that you're here, that your voice is heard. You can watch online, and you can also testify online. We will be there if you want to speak, and we can help you prepare to speak. Make sure you have about a minute of testimony left or prepared. We don't have very long on public testimony, but together our voices can be loud. And finally, January 27th is People's Policy Day. This is your moment. This is your chance. It will be a long day, but it will be worth it. It will be fun, and you will learn along with us, and we can truly make a difference, because if anything is proven from history, it's that when the people push, the people win. So I've only trimmed a little part of the tree here when it comes to legalization. We've talked about where we've started. We've talked about the push necessary. We've talked about the commission that's going on, but I want to take a couple minutes if there are any audience questions. If you have dropped them in, I will be able to answer those now. If you don't have any questions right now, you can also email us at info@marijuanajustice.org. You can go to our Instagram and drop us a DM. But we are here to really answer your questions. We want to do more of these Legalize It lives. So let us know what you want to hear about. And just know that with this new election, we have a new opportunity. So let us know what you want. Let us know what you're thinking. And even if you don't have all the answers, that you just want to be part of the cause, then sign up and show up. Are you subscribed to our newsletter? On our website, you will see the click button to subscribe to our newsletter. It comes out every week. It's titled The Green Light, and you can keep up with all the news across the nation, as well as right here in Virginia, and more opportunities to engage like right now with Legalize It Live. All right, y'all, we've got just another minute or so. So we thank you all for watching. And we want to make sure if you have more questions, you drop those in. I see my producer wants to come on and maybe.
Yes, I am here, Chels. Hi, hello, and how are you? I want to take this moment to thank every single person who is tuning in live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We want a big shout out to VA Cannabis OG. We have VA Cannabis Association. We have Zigamon 2 also inside of the chat. There's a lot of conversations going on, and we don't have a ton of time because unfortunately we have come to the close. But I do want to bring up one of the questions that has shown up inside of the chat. And there was a comment that there was going to be a emergency enactment, right? So OG Dude said that Lucas told him that the bill would get an emergency enactment and go into effect as soon as it gets signed. How true is that?
Senator Lucas is our president tempore, and so that she really does have one of the largest and most powerful voices in Virginia, and that could be something that happens. It will take a few other pieces besides our leadership saying so, but we could have an emergency enactment clause. That would mean that the Cannabis Control Authority would start their regulations earlier, that would start setting up our businesses earlier, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we will start selling from that moment. It will depend on what the bill says. And so if people like Senator Lucas hear from us that we want small businesses to be part of our day one and not just the monopolies and corporations, then that's something that we know people will listen to and to hear. But there are many options to get this moving faster that the legislature can do. It just depends on what the people want and what passes.
Absolutely. Thank you for answering that question. I want to just shout out to RFCC 420 says that we really need to have an educated market. I agree with you. So do we. So does Crafted Can Coach, who also came in to say, Chelsea, this was really, really great. And education is paramount. So thank you for what you're doing. I'm just going to close with the final question. Of course, audience, if you do have any questions in the chat, you can always reach us at info@marijuanajustice.org. But we are going to close with this last question. And this one comes from Just a Curly Head. And this is, yes, I hear all of this, but how can I support as a regular little person?
Hey there. First of all, you're not a regular little person. I really appreciate that you're here. And I would say that come to the General Assembly on December 2nd at 2 p.m. if you're able to. Sign up for our lobby day, which is our People's Policy Day on January 27th. Sign all of our petitions. And then when you see that we have things like that, bring people with you. Even if you don't know what to say, we will help you make sure your voice is heard. And so if there's everything that you need and we haven't solved that through showing up with the commission, showing up with advocacy or with our petitions, then reach out and we can figure out another way that we can get this going. Well, that is it. Yeah. Do you want to close us out?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if you do want to find out any more information, you can click on any of the links in our bio. You can find everything that we talked about, anything from the Cannabis Commission to learning more about our newsletters or signing our petitions. Everything is located at the link in our bio and also our contact information. If you really enjoyed this, I want you to spam the chats right now and just put in Legalize It Right. Legalize It Right in the chats right now. Thank you so much for joining us, Chelsea. That was great.
This was great. And while everyone's dropping that in there, I just want to say thank you again. This has been a historic week right now, and we can make this a historic year. So let's really think about what we want our industry to look like. Are we conscious consumers? Does it matter who owns it? Does it matter where it comes from and who's able to provide this type of wellness that we know the plant has really been put on this earth for? Let's make sure that we do this the right way, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we'll see you out there doing the work. Thanks, y'all.